Good morning, guys. It's bright and early here at Trinity High School where I spend all of my time. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about the French and Indian War. So, since we have a lot of stuff to cover this unit, but we're spending a lot of time on projects, a lot of time on discussion, primary source work, we're not going to have much time to cover the content. So I want to help you out a little bit. So, I'm going to run through just a short PowerPoint we put together on French and Indian War so I don't have to spend your time in class lecturing you, talking about the book, stuff like that. So, French and Indian War. England is coming off of, just a century of warfare. They are growing exponentially. We saw the Triangle Trade Columbian Exchange gave them the ability to compete globally in ways that they hadn't before. So now, they've entered all kinds of these wars based off imperialism. You see King William's War, Queen Anne's War, King George's War, and now we're making it to the French and Indian War. The colonists really not involved with any of the first three, but finally the 7 Years' War, which is a war that is fought primarily in Britain, finds its way over to the colonies, finds its way to the Americas. This war is primarily between France and Great Britain, and it's going to fall over into the colonies. So it's the 17th century. America is an incredibly valuable place. People in Canada and America really end up just being pawns in this game. The French and the American colonists are just those that kind of get used, and the Native Americans really just get used. And this is all over possession of the Ohio River Valley, which is incredibly valuable real estate at this time. You've got the Iroquois who all live here. They're trying to expand where they live. Their confederacy believes that they can compete with the French and the British. Colonial Americans, clearly they've been here the longest in this area. They're trying to expand as land is becoming scarce on the East Coast. They're expanding rapidly. The French link their Canadian holdings to their holdings west of the Mississippi. The French are also trying to expand their fur trade. And at this time, good old George Washington, this is the first time we've seen him. Thank goodness, I know you're finally seeing American history that you know about. George Washington's family has a 500,000 acre claim in this region. And you're going to see that effect come to play and how that is going to play out within this French and Indian War and later in the American Revolution. So, George Washington at Fort Duquesne, he marches in with this extremely cocky general, arrogant General Braddock refuses to recruit Indians to help because he believes them to be an inferior race. They go in against the French and Indians. They're probably 20, 30 miles from Fort Duquesne, and then because they don't have Indians, because they don't have Native Americans helping them, they're basically ambushed, completely slaughtered, massacred. The French lose 23 men. The British, 914 men. Braddock is killed with almost all of his men. George Washington, just a volunteer at the time, takes over and leads Braddock's men out. The biggest outcome of this is that our boy GW, our boy Washington, emerges as a hero. Even though all of the cannons, all of the supplies, all of the British secret papers are taken, Washington emerges as a hero. He says at the end of this, writing to a good friend, basically says that the British turned and ran as if sheep being chased by dogs, and he refers to the Virginians as the Virginians fought like men, and the Virginians died like soldiers. So you see the colonists are beginning to have this rugged American sense, this idea of America as we see it today, starting to emerge right here. It's kind of all starting to come together. The British, the redcoats, the lobster backs, we're beginning to see a certain fighting style with them. the Virginians behaved like men and died like soldiers. Remember that as we get closer and closer to the Civil War. The British march in foundations. The British march in formations compared to the guerrilla tactics of the colonists. The colonists believed that they should pay for their own defense, whereas the The British believed that the colonists should basically pay for anything that they should do themselves. Like if they want to fight against the Indians, they have to pay for it. If they want help, they should have to pay. They should basically do it all themselves. Whereas the colonists see that they're being taxed, the navigation acts are in play, all of these other new acts are beginning to come into play, and there's nothing that they're getting in return. So why should they help and support Britain? So they're really beginning to be seriously annoyed with. We see the very first idea of a union of the states. Good old Ben Franklin brings forth the Albany Plan of Union. This sign, this join or die idea, this did not come out of the American Revolution. It came out of the French and Indian War. It first pops up with the Albany Plan of Union in 1754 and old Ben Franklin. It was a plan to view the colonies as united, not ratified. So this is a very, very loose idea of a union, much like the Articles of Confederation will be eventually. Nothing like the Constitution, but it is a start. It's a plan. It's an impetus, a catalyst. It's all going to get started. So basically the French and the Indian War, the British end up winning. There's several battles we're not going to get into, but they begin to take over this area. As you'll notice this map, France has all of this middle land, almost the entire interior of the Americas, of what is the continental United States today, the Ohio River Valley, all theirs. Great Britain, the eastern colonies, and then there's this disputed area. This is the only Ohio River Valley right here, that area right there. After the war, after the Treaty of Paris, France is gone. Check these new states. Check how expansive Great Britain is all of a sudden. Because of this, Spain gives up Florida because of their part in the 7 Years' War back in Europe. France is expelled from North America. Great Britain, what do you think? King Georgie over there is probably thinking cha-ching, like all kinds of money. France loses all Canadian possessions, most of their empire in India, so there are other colonies involved. England gets all of Canada, everything east of the Mississippi River, Florida from Spain, parts of the Caribbean. So George is pumped. They have all this new land. But when you have all of this new land, what is that going to take? What is that going to take? England goes unbelievably into debt. They had hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the colonies already that they're paying for, that they're supporting, and now they say, well, we're going to need at least probably 10 to 20,000 more colonists just to stay within just to police the Appalachians. What about Canada? What about Florida? They're going to need hundreds of thousands more soldiers they're going to have to pay just for the American colonies. This begins to get a little bit difficult for them to do. So it's greatly enlarging England's debt. And the colonists, who see once again that we're not getting a whole lot of support and we're over here fighting a war for Great Britain, they're the only people benefiting from this. So the colonists, go back to here, colonists are thinking, okay, well, what we're going to get out of this is that we were beginning to be a little bit cramped along this east coast. So we're now going to get all of this land. Great. We're going to begin to move west. Awesome. We're going to see pretty soon why that is not going to happen. So they begin to unite against a common enemy. We saw that Albany Plan of Union. We see that bitter feeling towards the Union. This is socially empowering for the colonists. No longer are they just Virginians, Massachusetts. That's fun to say. They were trying to fight a common enemy. And that's an empowering thing for you all, for Trinity students. One of honestly, the greatest strengths that you all have is St. X. Think about that. Think about how much you all are already, seriously, all over and over, you all are already asking me about the St. X game. Are you going to come? It's such a big event. Like, this really unites you all against this common enemy, this common rival. That is a huge strength. So now the colonies are beginning to think of themselves as much more of a unit, which is just an incredibly empowering thing. The natives, they kind of look at it and say, wait a minute, what just happened? They don't understand their idea of land relations and land ownership is just not there. They have a communal idea. The land cannot be owned. It's sacred. And so for the French to just all of a sudden decide that the land isn't theirs anymore and to give it to the British, who the Indians are not friendly with, not cordial at all, this is just perplexing to them. So the Indians are going to fight back. Pontiac's rebellion is basically not just one war, not just based on Pontiac. Pontiac is just the leader of the largest resistance, but this happens across almost the entire East Coast. He leads a slew of different tribes in different rebellions, different fightbacks, um, and the British retaliate with smallpox blankets. In classic British fashion, is we don't really want to fight you, so disease. So the British now is seeing we really can't afford to fight this. They throw out some smallpox blankets, kill off some Native Americans, but this isn't enough. They have to find a way to stop this. So what they're going to do is the Proclamation Line of 1763. They close off the entire frontier to colonial expansion. Hey, thanks for fighting that war with us. Here's your 13 colonies, but you know what? Stay there. You are not allowed to go past this line. We now own all this, but we're going to leave that for the natives because we can't afford to fight another war. So how about you just stay put? So you remember all of this land that they got, all of this land that they got now, can't use it. Cannot use it. You're stuck. Stay where you are. Don't expand. And what's that going to do? I wonder how this is going to go. Hmm. Good chance that this is not going to turn out well for the colonists and the British, and I think you know where it's going. So what I want you to do is after finishing this, after taking some notes on this screencast, I want you to go to your journal. Go to a journal on an space, and here's your question. Between 1754 and 1776, a major development. Hint, hint, if we talk about developments, which we're going to start mentioning things as, these vocab terms, these big ideas, this would work for a short answer question if they ask about a development within this period. A major development is the French and Indian War. Analyze the effects of the French and Indian War and its aftermath on the relationship between Great Britain and the British colonies. The big outcome, the big idea from the French and Indian War is not about relations with the Indians. It's about with Britain. Try to remember that. The biggest effect on this is not about the Indians or the natives. It definitely has a cultural effect on us, has an effect on the Native Americans, but the biggest effect is on our relationship with Great Britain. Think about that. Write a journal about it. We'll see you in class tomorrow.